Hello and welcome to another episode of the ADHD Goals Podcast. Today I have a fantastic guest for you. Her name is Nella Dwyer, and Nella is the executive ADHD coach, and she's renowned for her strengths-based, high-level leadership coaching for creatives, professionals, company leads, and executives. With a proven track record of delivering exceptional results, Nella is the go-to coach for discerning clients who value excellence and are wanting to invest in their personal and professional growth, and through an ADHD lens. So welcome to the show, Nella. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm very good. Just off a flight back in Ireland from Los Angeles after a month. So a little bit jet lagged. So forgive me if I lose my words a few times.
Yeah, so I'm always confused as to which direction do you get the most jet lag? You're probably more experienced.
You know, I think it's supposed to be like LA to Ireland, like as in coming this way. But maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, I always get way worse going there. So for the first, I think they say 1 hour for for every day of the time difference, and it's 8 hours. That usually does take me about 8 days when I arrive in LA to kind of acclimatize. But yeah, coming back usually I'm okay. My brain is operating as if it's just morning time, and I probably missed a night's sleep from the flight overnight. So that's why my brain is just a bit confused, I think. But
The LA trip, was there anything exciting going on?
yeah, so I'm also a singer-songwriter. So I had, lots of people to meet, waiting on my artist green card to come through. So it was kind of the last trip. I live between here and there. I go back and forth a lot for the last 8 or 9 years. So waiting on my green card, and that was kind of the last trip before I get it. So then I'll start kind of doing a lot of work over there with gigging and doing shows and stuff. But yeah, and I just love it there, if I'm honest. It's real nice creative space, and so I'm there quite a lot.
Yeah. So that's an artist green card, so that will allow you to work. Sorry, this sounds odd that I'm asking this question. Is that for a year, or is that for a longer period of time?
Yeah, so a green card generally is 10 years, and then you just renew it after the 10 years. But I think after 4 years, you can probably apply for citizenship, I believe. I think that's correct. So it's basically like an artist green card. Yeah, you can get an artist O1 visa, which is shorter. But I went straight for the kind of green card. It's more difficult to get, but you have to have kind of credits to your name and stuff like that. So yeah, but it's kind of, once you have it, then you can kind of do what you want for 10 years and then just renew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I ask, or the reason why it sounds so interesting, is because my brother and I, we are trying to get our Irish passports.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, love this. I didn't realize this is interesting or not. But no, my mum was adopted. So she had 2 Irish parents, but was brought here adopted. And so when I was 8, we found out that we were half Irish. And so since the age of 8, I've been Irish. But now, since Brexit, me and my brother have been like, we should get an Irish passport.
Wow.
And so it's taken us ages to get around to it, but we've finally got all the documents that we need, because he's just chasing around people's birth certificates and adoption certificates and everything like that. But yeah, so that could be an exciting thing for 2025 that we might.
Amazing. Those documents, that's why my green card's taken so long. And typical ADHD fashion, it's just when there's so much administration, it's kind of overwhelming, isn't it? And then when you think you've done it all, you're like, now there's more. So that's why mine's taken so long. I don't know if you're the same, but anyway, yeah.
Even with the ADHD diagnosis process, like that, I think that's like a cruel catch-22 trick.
You know what? I was lucky, but yeah, for a lot of people, for sure, it's sort of very the opposite of what it should be. Yeah.
I think it's a test that if you can actually apply successfully, then you
don't have it. Yeah, no, they applied on time. No, scratch them on. I was actually so lucky with mine. Mine was honestly the way bloody should be. I went to the doctor, said, I think there's something going on. I think it might be ADHD. She sent me to a psychiatrist. Also deals with ADHD and amongst other things, because I don't really believe in people going to a person who just deals with ADHD, because you may be missing the whole picture, right? Or that it may be something else or whatever. And I had a 2.5 hour meeting. He went through what I now know is all the DSM-5 questions, asked me how long a lot of these things have been going on for, and made the diagnosis, prescribed medication because I wanted to try it. And a month later had a, had a check-in with him, and that was it. That's how it should be, right? It's just, these days I feel so bad for a lot of clients I have, and just, it can be just a really sort of tumultuous path. And again, the antithesis, I can't say that word, antithesis of being helpful for an ADHD person to actually get the help that they need and deserve. It can be very frustrating for people. Yeah.
Well, you've very neatly sort of stumbled into where I like to sort of start the interviews in terms of what is your ADHD journey. So when was it that you were diagnosed?
I think with COVID, years just become really vapid. At this point, where are we? 2024. I'm going to say I was diagnosed, I think it was, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah, a family member was suspected of having ADHD. And I remember thinking, no way, they're really intelligent. Doesn't make any sense. And we were told to just have a look at this stuff anyway. And when I read all about what ADHD actually was, I was like, okay, not only is this them, this is me, this is my dad. And that doesn't mind me talking about the fact that we definitely know it came from him. He's got a great creative brain. Actually, he worked in adoption. Just funny you mentioned adoption. The head of adoption in Southern Ireland before he retired. But it was around then. And so then I quickly realized a lot of issues in my life were certainly potentially down to ADHD. And I remember the psychiatrist at the end of the first appointment with him, I remember him saying something like, I can't remember the exact words he used. My watch is making sounds. Oh, turn off the on silent. Sorry. I remember him saying something like, you very much have ADHD. And I was like, what does that mean? And he was like, no, it's very obvious. You've got all the signs, and you very much do. And so I think it was around 7 years ago. And then I got an ADHD coach. That changed my life in about 3 sessions. I couldn't believe how life was just incredibly different. I had a bit of time, and I decided I'd only ever done music, singing and songwriting and shows, etc. And I was like, wait a second, I can't gatekeep this information. This has changed my life in just a few sessions. I need to sort of, I don't know, it was just this impulsion, I don't know which one is the correct word, but to help others to kind of see the light of what I had learned, even in just a short space of time, and then went on to train at ADCA for about a year. That was life-changing as well. It was incredible. But anyway, sorry, I'm answering probably your next question.
I just wanted, you said earlier about you reflected and you see that where some of the challenges in your life perhaps could have been ADHD. I wonder, just if you don't mind, what sort of challenges were those that you were having?
Okay, so I suppose when I was saying that a minute ago, what was coming to mind that I kind of was thinking about, relationship problems, I think. Friendships, rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, really, that was a big one. I definitely knew that I knew I was sensitive anyway because I write songs, and I don't think you could sort of perhaps access that portal of creativity if you were not sensitive, right? So I don't see anything wrong with sensitivity. However, when it hurts you, there's 2 sides to it. But the rejection sensitivity, definitely, I'd never even heard of that before. And I realized, I think in the past with friendships, I would sort of, I suppose, there's so many, everything relates to the next thing. But when I learned about boundaries in my training, I'm going here to go back here, but when I learned about boundaries and the fact that most of us with ADHD sort of have an entire missing set of boundaries, if not no boundaries at all put in place consciously in our lives, and that other people were putting boundaries in place naturally and sort of able to navigate relationships, those 2 things really kind of hit me, because when I realized that, I suppose I kind of lost friendships through the years, it would have been the kind of pattern would have been, I had lots of friends, but I noticed a pattern that was I would let people treat me kind of the way they were treating me, to a point where I go, hang on a second, they can't talk to me like that. They can't treat me like that. Not knowing that I actually had no boundaries put in place at all. So we teach people how to treat us. I think people were just sort of, if they saw that I wouldn't care if they said this to me, then they would say something out that kind of way. And we have control over how people treat us to our own boundaries. And I realized I had none. And I was so sensitive to rejection. Anything that was sort of perceived rejection to me, or any received or perceived rejection, I would then blacken the person as bad. Okay, they're bad. I need to get rid of them. And I would just cut the relationship and just never speak to the person again. I did that. And
Yeah.
I'd say I'm not sure I've ever had a client in the last few years. I don't think I've ever had a client who, when I say that story to, they're not shaking their head going, yeah. A lot of just allow certain behaviors over and over. And then when they go, hang on a second, have a kind of a blow up, or just go, no way, and then blacken the person, rather than understanding, actually, I can turn this around. I have control and power to boundaries in place, have my needs met, vocalize them, and it doesn't make me bad. And so I think, yeah, I am kind of digressing question about
I was thinking about boundaries the other day, because I think it's an interesting word, because I think boundaries in other areas as well, like if in the place of work, or just being able to say, no, I'm not able to do that, or whatever. Because I was thinking of an example the other day. I think my girlfriend was asking me what I was doing at the weekend, because I've got 2 kids, she's got 2 kids. So sometimes it can be quite logistically difficult to organize things with all the kids having different activities at the weekend. And he was, oh, maybe you can come over and we'll watch the Strictly Come Dancing final. And I had already realized that sort of there was a play date that I had to go to, and then a party the next day. And I sort of didn't say anything. And what I should have said was like, oh, I don't know, it's probably a bit busy for me, so maybe I won't. So I just went. And then I realized that was giving off a signal that was probably triggering her, going, oh, why doesn't he want to come round? Whereas she probably would have said just straight away, oh, I've, played hockey, this, that, the other. That would probably, that won't fit. And I would have just gone, oh, that's fine. But, because I didn't want to say no, because I wanted to do it, but I thought logistically I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But I didn't want to hear myself say no in case that sort of upset her. But in the end, not saying anything and not creating a boundary or whatever, you end up, I suppose, having troubles or giving people the wrong signals about things like that. So it's an interesting thing with boundaries, yeah.
Yeah, oh, it is. It's I think I think a lot of people think that, I think boundaries are very misunderstood. I mean, listen, I didn't even know that I could have one. I didn't even know what the word really meant until I did my training, and we had to go deep into all our own stuff. So for most people, I think that boundaries are about controlling somebody else's behavior, whereas, and maybe I said it, I didn't mean to say it actually quite like that. You're right, I did say it like that. What I meant really was that, I suppose, boundaries really are not about controlling somebody else's behavior. It's about controlling your own response to somebody, so that you're not sort of, oh God, I can't get my brain thoughts out. So I suppose, as what I would say to clients is, boundaries are not about controlling the other person's behavior towards you. It's about sort of having your own self-respect in place, so that you're not exchanging your self-respect for theirs. So if somebody's saying, hey, do you want to come over and do this thing? You're like, God, I'm not even explaining it properly. Your example is not something that I'm trying to use your example, but actually it's not helping what I'm trying. It's not my example. But yeah, boundaries are sort of invisible lines of self-respect we've put in place in order to live a happy and successful life and get what we want. And I always add the last part, and not feel like a bit of an asshole while we're doing it. And I think it's about saying, look, when you do this, it makes me feel like this. So if you're going to do this, I'm going to do this. It's about telling somebody your response. And I'm not trying to school you. I'm just, if it's helpful for the audience, maybe it's about saying, well, okay, you can keep doing that thing, but actually, if you're going to do that, this is what I'm going to do. And usually people don't want to.
I wonder the challenges around people with ADHD being able to set boundaries. I wonder, and I'm just thinking off the fly a little bit here, I wonder if that comes not maybe initially looking at what our sort of our values are, or values and purpose, and sort of, because we might think about that, but with an ADHD brain, you can think about the same thing over and over again, and like have lots of different thoughts shooting all over the place. But it's not until you actually maybe process that or write it down and say, right, this is how I feel about I want to be treated, or the work that I do, what I want it to align with. I think that can be a step that's missed. People can just go straight off and try and solve problems, but you find that if the work that you then go off to do, or whatever it is, the goal that you set, if you realize further down the line, it doesn't align with, your purpose or your values, then you will sort of lose interest in it, or realize that you've done the wrong thing or whatever. And I suppose what I'm trying to get to is to understand what your boundaries are. I think you first need to sort of sit down and examine what your values are.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I think I think boundaries, like one of the reasons we lack boundaries is, like you said, kind of people pleasing. We don't want to feel that we're letting somebody down. We don't want to feel like we're sort of, a lot of people think that putting boundaries in place is sort of going to lose opportunities. You're going to lose relationships. You're going to sound like you're making a threat, all those things. And it's none of those things. It's literally just, I always say to my clients, why is your level of self-respect different to that person's? Like, why should you be holding them higher? Like, we're all equal. Why would you not deserve to have the same respect you're giving to them? And actually, if you ask them literally, do I deserve less respect than you? The person would usually say absolutely not, right? So who you are authentically and your actual needs is who that person probably wants in the first place. And I think that plays into it. And I think you're right about the values. I always do like values exercises with clients just to know they know what their North Star is, what drives them and what their purpose is. And I think the way that you can kind of sit down and kind of evaluate your boundaries, like you said, it can be different types of boundaries, like time boundaries, or sexual boundaries, friendship boundaries, family boundaries. I think once you kind of categorize where the boundaries in your life are rather than with who, because boundaries are your own personal rules. They're not interchange. Like, obviously we have to be flexible, but you can't have one rule for Mary, one rule for John, one rule for whatever, because then you're putting rules on other people. Whereas these have to be your own set of personal rules, no matter who the person is. These are sort of your non-negotiables. Again, with a little bit of flexibility, but at work, I need to have, for example, like you said, a time boundary. So if somebody says to me, hey, can you do this body of work? And you've got your own body of work. I like kind of using the power of the pause, saying, you know what? I'll always say to clients, like, just give yourself time. Just go, I'll get back to you in an hour, or I'll get back to you and let you know, because I don't know right now. So I think with ADHD, a lot of us feel like we have to give an answer now. Again, kind of feeds into the people pleasing, RSD, I think, rejection sensitivity. We're just talking about those two things a lot now, but I think they all play into each other, like I said. So I think that can be really helpful going, do you know what? And then you can actually assess if you have the capacity to do that, if you have the time to do that, if it's going to affect your own work. Because I always say, like, well, if you take on their work and then you can't do yours or theirs, then you're doing them a total disservice, because they could have gotten somebody else to do it. And now your work's done, their work's not done. You're overwhelmed, they're annoyed, and both things are only hard, right? Yeah. So it's actually not serving somebody else sometimes to say yes.
Yeah. I've written that down, power of the pause. I like that.
Those are the ways we can use that thing. The other thing is, I think a very fundamentally simple thing is, most of us, including me, with ADHD, feel like, now there's two sizes, but feel like if somebody emails you or texts you and needs an answer, that you have to respond immediately. You absolutely don't. You can exercise the power of the pause there too. Now, don't make it too long, like me. Your really important email I should have sent a week ago, and it's playing on my mind all week. So that's sort of something I've been tolerating, which is not good. So there's a balance, of course, but just, we're not a servant to everybody else. We all are equal in our needs. And I think that's really important, because with ADHD, we often feel like we have to be, or we are operating from a kind of a reactivity place rather than a proactive place for what we actually want and need. And yes, like you said, ways to find that out are knowing what your values are, knowing what your non-negotiables are, knowing the things that you're tolerating too much of. If you walk away from a relationship, or not a relationship, sorry, if you walk away with like an interaction with somebody or any situation, you feel that horrible feeling of, I just don't like how that went. Usually that's the feeling that can let you know that a boundary needs to be put in place, maybe with that sort of type of situation, like at work or friendships or family, rather than just putting a boundary with certain people, because again, it's about your rules, not rules for other people, because we can't control other people's behavior, but we can control our reactions to them and let them know if we don't like something.
Yeah.
We're totally entitled to do that, because if we think about our neurotypical friends, we all have situations daily almost where people often tell us what they want and need, and it's not easy, right?
Yeah, it's helpful because you're like, okay, we could all sort of work around that.
It's more helpful. Like I always say, like, sorry, I keep trying to turn off my watch making noise, and I think I do the opposite, isn't it? Keep creating loads of noise now.
I have trouble with, since I set up a watch and oh no, I think it was, I set up some reminders on my, like daily reminders on my phone, and for some reason it's the only thing that comes through when I then try and say, like, be on silent or don't vibrate or anything. So the text messages don't come through, but these reminders will come through every day, which I've long begun to ignore. I might be somewhere or doing something that there shouldn't be a noise, and it just comes through. I don't know how to switch it off.
I know, it's one of your tolerations you need to get rid of.
So I started by asking you about some of the challenges that you were facing when you first got diagnosed, but in the introduction, we spoke about how you're renowned for your strength-based leadership coaching. So I suppose moving from challenges to strengths, can you tell me a little bit about your focus on strength-based coaching and what that looks like?
Yeah, I suppose for me, it's really important, like knowing that it's not a bad brain, it's just a different brain. And I think what I've learned over the last few years of coaching a lot of highly successful people and very interesting, very highly intelligent, highly creative people with ADHD is that it's just a very similar blueprint. We're not all the same, but the blueprint, like often when clients would be like, oh my God, you're like, I feel like you're a psychic. And you probably had this during your training and I did too. They're like, how are you telling me about my actual life experience without me knowing that's what that was called or that was a thing, or I thought they were just personality things or whatever. So for me, it's really important that it's just a very different brain, the neurotypical brain, and it's just got different good and bads than the neurotypical brain. Like every brain has some good and bad, and the ADHD brain has different good and bad. And we can see this on a brain scan. It's not, the brain is a physical organ. So this isn't just woo, this is, you can typically see ADHD, the dark matter at the front of the brain. And so for me, like strengths-based coaching is it's really important that part of the coaching process I have with my clients, I build kind of this personal operations manual with them through their own life experience rather than me just lecturing them, because ADHDers hate rules. So they're not going to listen if I'm telling them what to do anyway. And it's kind of pointless. So it has to be through what's actually going on in their lives, but sort of drawing from their strengths and finding out what strengths that they have. I like to use the VIA character strengths. So if you go onto the VIA character strengths website and find out, sort of like do the free survey and find out what your character strengths are. And I like to use the top 5 character strengths. So say if you've got like a top character strength of kindness, well, there's a couple of different ways we can use it. And number one, like our one way is that, say, if you've got kindness, it's really important that you every day are making sure that you're expressing kindness outwards, but even more importantly, inwards towards yourself in order to feel the kind of sense of purpose in your day. Appreciation of beauty and kindness is another character strength that a lot of ADHDers have in their top 5 as well. Again, it's like a blueprint. Like a lot of my clients, it's almost not the same, but almost the same top 5 or 10. You've got the same ones, kind of top 5 or 10. So it's really important again that you're putting yourself in a position that you're able to appreciate beauty and, sorry, not beauty, kindness. I think I said I meant to say beauty and excellence. I'm not sure if I said that. That you're able to put yourself in a position of seeing beautiful things. Here's all my notifications. So, and noticing the kind of beauty and excellence within yourself as well. That's going to be really important. And then another way that you can use that is if we already know that a top strength of yours is a kindness, then we can use that to problem solve. So if a client comes to me the following week and they're saying, I have this problem, I don't know how to solve it. Well, actually, okay, well, how can we, if we know that one of your top strengths is kindness, how could you use kindness in the situation? Because if you're using one of the strengths that we know are already innate in you, then that's most likely the thing that's going to work if you're drawing from that strength, right? So that usually gets them to where they need to get to as well and gets their answers and gets them moving forward. And I just think that whilst ADHD can cause a lot of really, really tough times for us, for sure, it's not to glamorize ADHD by any means. I cannot sort of say that having ADHD and all the strengths that comes with it as well, like sensitivity, like hyperfocus, like grit, determination, have not absolutely contributed to a lot of my successes in advocating for a family that maybe had stuff going on with health, advocating for myself with music and really having that, having that kind of determination to keep going in the music industry for a long time, earning no money, but just seeing, no, this is, and being able to hyper focus on it because obviously it was giving me dopamine, but being able to tour around the world. I've toured China multiple times and I always said, I've never taken drugs, but I suppose ADHD medication is an important drug, but illegal drug. But I always said that like being on stage is like a drug to me. And when I got diagnosed, I was like, oh God,
Yeah.
blood it's dopamine and it's all those nice serotonin and oxytocin, all those. So it literally was a drug to me that I would be lacking in normal days. So I'm much more comfortable actually on stage than anywhere else. And so there's been a sensitivity. My entire life, people say, why are you so sensitive? And now I'm like, oh my God, thank God, because the amount of songs that I'm not trying to say I'm amazing, but you know what? The songs, I've written very emotional songs that have had thousands of people in front of me crying. So I'm grateful that I have a sensitivity that I've been able to tap into my emotions to be able to perform for people so that people can process their own emotions, right? How could that be a bad thing? So Would I give my ADHD back? Absolutely not. Has it caused me 2 breakdowns in my life? Yes. Has it caused me a lot of social anxiety, et cetera, et cetera? Yes. But, I've had a lot of success in my life. Really, I've contributed a lot of that to the strengths of my ADHD. And I could go on about all that for a long time. But really, so I sort of, I don't want to glamorize it with people, but, when I have clients, I really think it's really important to look at what successes have you had in your life. Okay, most people with ADHD, because we're chasing dopamine forward, we don't take count of all the successes we've had in the past. And Laurence, I have never, ever had a client that when we sat down and look at, well, what successes have you had in the past? And the reason we would do that usually is if they're suffering from a lack of confidence or a lack of sort of a roadmap moving forward to get to their goals, or a lack of confidence or understanding of how they're going to reach different goals. And the reason you asked me about strengths-based sort of coaching, okay, I need to know, number one, what are your strengths? Because that's what has contributed to your success in the past and what we can draw from, even if they're not conscious within you. So there's that. And then what successes have you had in the past and how did you get there? Yeah. Because these are not something that somebody else did. These are things that I had a client, and if she watches this, she'll laugh, but I was coaching her for about 6 months. And one day I was like, okay, let's go back to looking at what past successes you've had. She's like, did I tell you that I actually, and I won't say what sport, but I performed in the Olympics and I won. And I was like, it's like, what? And I've had this reaction so many times with clients that when they just randomly throw in, oh, I did this. And you're just like, bloody shit, it's amazing. And I'm not trying to be patronizing, but I'm talking about massive things that people have done that they're like, yeah, I suppose, yeah, I never really think about it, because ADHD is about the now and the not now, right? So if I'm sitting here in my house in Kinsale and I feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything in my music career right now, blah, blah. And then I say that to somebody, they're all so confused. They're like, you toured China multiple times. You're the singer in the biggest video game in the world. You've had a #1. You have a document. You're working with all these Emmy and Grammy. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's kind of cool, I suppose, but if it's not right in front of you, often we don't see it. And that's when we can sort of spiral into the abyss sometimes of not realizing how great we actually are. So again, not about glamorizing ADHD, but there certainly are amazing strengths that I already knew from myself, but after coaching so many people over the last few years and working with incredible brains, I absolutely know it. And that there's incredible strengths that come with ADHD. But I think the problem is we don't know how to navigate or understand what ADHD is, how it affects it.
Yeah,
We have the.
I think the challenge is when somebody with ADHD, a client, comes to you, it's usually at a point where things are so challenging that they're reaching out for help. So there tends to be a focus on how can we sort out the challenges at the moment. But when you're working on something, it can tend to feel a bit overly prioritizing what's bad about ADHD. But like you say, identifying the strengths, and particularly yourself as a creative, those strengths are pretty much a big part of your personality and your life. And I think because someone with ADHD typically is bouncing around from one thing to another and creating maybe long to-do lists or big long goals that are really far off for each one of these different things, they do forget to just say, oh, I've got this far with that, and that's quite good, because they never stop and celebrate. They just move on to the next thing. And yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Well, me too. Listen, I still have ADHD. Absolutely. I think the problem is that because we often go from 0 to 100 and get excited. And there's some of the strengths of ADHD too. We get very excited about things. We can see the vision. Our brains, because of executive dysfunction, our brains naturally are amazing creative thinkers, like often inventors of songs or businesses or entrepreneurs, and also great problem solvers, because our brain naturally has to, when we get lots of thoughts at the exact same time with executive dysfunctioning, our brains have to execute choose which thought to execute the function of. So our brains are naturally having to problem solve, which also leads to overwhelm and burnout sometimes, because it's. But again, if you understand how to, if you navigate and use it to your advantage, that's when you get some great results. But it's about the kind of going from 0 to 100 that is great, but also when we don't see the wood from the trees, that's often, I think it's a huge part of why ADHD coaching is so effective, because if we know what the major goal is, the massive goal is, often it's like, okay, well, what's the first step? And I think most people including myself, and I'm sure you're the same, but any client I've ever kind of really asked that question to, typical coaching question, well, what would be the first step in order to get there? They're always telling me around it's the third step usually. I'm like, okay, if they're telling me what the first step is, I'm like, okay, and what's the block down? Like, well, I haven't done this or I need to do this. It's like, okay, well, what's keeping the interest of that? Okay, so really that sounds like step number 3. And I wonder, have you not started because actually there's step 1 and step 2 that you didn't realize you need to do yet. And maybe the block of interest that has stopped you getting started at step 3, maybe you just don't have all the information that you needed. Maybe that's step 1. Maybe you needed more information about something in order to be able to get to step 2, for example. So maybe actually booking that, whatever it is, booking that show, trip, whatever, is not the first step. Maybe it's finding out the information about it first that you need to do. And then maybe you need to ask this crowd of people that you're going with or going to do this show with or trip with, for example, what their preference is. And then maybe the third step is actually booking the thing. And maybe that's been the block of your interest. Rather than making it more interesting, what's been blocking your interest is usually quite helpful.
I quite often, my thoughts will race away on a new idea, and very quickly I could just see the whole big picture, and I go, oh, this is going to be amazing. I get really excited about it. And then I'll maybe start working on something. And then where I tend to hit a wall is probably where I've then got to start reaching out or validating things with other people. And it's like, I've already built up this idea and I think it's going to be amazing. But then that step where I've got to actually talk about it or have somebody else critique it, or it feels like RSD is on the horizon, and it's like, are they going to think I'm full of shit? Or are they going to say it's not? Because sometimes people can't see what you can see because you haven't outlined it properly, but you're like, it's going to be great. But they're like, I don't understand it. And then you go, oh no, maybe it won't work. And then
the
wheels come on.
And I'm not good at this, actually. I keep reminding myself going, okay, remember you wanted to do this. Is when I've got exciting news or something exciting happens, and I just did it this morning. I'm like, why the whole oversharing? I think when you share your good, exciting news or that somebody emailed you that's so exciting, you get your dopamine from that. The cigarette smoker gets the dopamine from thinking about smoking the cigarette, not the actual smoking of the cigarette, right? We're going to use up our dopamine telling somebody about this exciting thing rather than using it to actually do the thing or reply to the person or to bring whatever the exciting thing is further along before we share it with other people. That's often much more helpful, but it's very difficult with our kind of impulsivity. And so I'll often get good news, tell somebody, and then forget to reply to the actual person who's offering me the thing that I said was a good news. So I've used up my dopamine. I'm like, I'm good now. It's like getting a text and going, oh, cool, that person messaged me. Put your phone away, and then you totally forget to reply to them, even though they made you so happy by texting them, right? Whereas you got your dopamine from it. The whole like, do it now kind of thing. I like that whole, okay, just do it now, just reply now. And again, I know earlier I said somebody emails you doesn't mean you have to reply straight away. That's a bit different. That's if somebody's sort of asking for your help with something or for you to do something for them maybe. But if you've got something exciting going on, just try and keep it to yourself for a little while and use that dopamine to kind of see it further along so it does happen rather than using it up to tell everyone. And I'm totally guilty of that. I'm like, guess what? I ring my mom and then I forget to reply to the person. I may lose an opportunity.
Well, that's it. I mean, before I realized that I was diagnosed with ADHD, I would find myself in situations maybe when I was in a social environment and I'd be telling people about my latest obsession and I'd be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then if I look back on my life, it's been like littered with ideas that I told people that I was definitely going to do. And then they just get used to being like, and, this is part of what led me to getting diagnosed. It was like, what's causing the procrastination? But I suppose the light bulb moment when you realize and when you fully understand what ADHD is, which I didn't before then, you go, okay, well, now I understand why I've hit those roadblocks all that time. And it's been a real eye opener. And with the ADHD coaching, it's been really useful to try and move forward with a lot of those things. I mean, even purpose about doing this podcast was to just say, right, I really want to overcome this sort of not being able to sort of get ideas of what I'm working on out there. And it really helps me stay accountable to say, if I announce something, is to then follow through with it because I said I was going to do it.
And I think that's interesting because it's like, it's whatever works for you. I think that's really interesting what you just said, because you kind of said, I'm not saying it's the opposite, but like another option, right? And I think If you have an option, especially for clients, if you have options of ways somebody can do something, and then see what works for them, and then use that going forward in whatever else they want. It's just a big discovery process for me, with clients. Is I've like a file on each client, and I kind of know how they operate and what works for them. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but it's certainly going to be on the menu of options that I know, like what you just said, sort of, oh gosh, what did you say? My brain's not working. Help me out, Laurence. You just said something that was the opposite of, kind of the opposite of what I had said, and both can be, one can be good for this person with ADHD and one for this person with ADHD, but there's going to be a menu of options that usually will work for.
I totally agree. In terms of, as we was sort of saying, the strength, first of all, one person with ADHD can be completely different to another person with ADHD. And I always think of it as like being like a visual, not an equalizer that you'd have like on those old stereos. You'd see everybody's got different things turned up to 10 and down to 12, or down to 2 or whatever. And so depending on which of your strengths you have at the top, and then whichever saboteurs you've got, which are high and low, you can use those strategically to solve a particular challenge. So if you've got a particular challenge with time management, is how can I use that strength? But sometimes you might be able to use a saboteur to maybe sort of manipulate a strength that you're maybe overusing, because sometimes you can overuse a strength and always focus on doing that when really it's preventing you from doing something else. So it's really interesting how you can use your ADHD profile, as it were, overcome a specific challenge.
What exactly? Like, I'd love to kind of understand more about what. Give me an example.
Well, hang on. I can't recall it, but I probably could see it because I've got it on my own little.
Maybe it's really quick that my jet lag is just need you to repeat again.
Yeah, hang on. Let me see if I've got an example of it, so that we can edit out the pause.
I think it's important for, like, if you have kind of something that works really well, it's helpful if you can help with explaining it, and I might learn something as well, and they may. So I think it's good to get tangible examples sometimes, especially I think it's important with ADHD. If you don't understand what somebody's saying, just ask, can you say that actually what I should have said is, can you just say that in a different way? I love that, because often when somebody says in a different way, that you get it. Just lands.
Well, I'm going to share. Well, I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
So now I can.
Yeah. So this is me. This is my ADHD.
Okay.
And so I've got my strengths: love of learning, humor, zest, and creativity. But then I've got hyperachiever, avoider, pleaser, and controller. Now, I can't remember which one of my sort of executive functioning challenges that this relates to, but basically there was one where one of my saboteurs, I could actually use that. I think it's probably something to do with pleaser. If I used that as a way of saying, well, if something is going to prevent me from coming this,
I have an example.
It might be, how can I use the pleaser? How can I bring someone into my accountability? It might be like saying to my girlfriend that I'm going to get this done, or get her to say, it'd be really useful if you could get that done. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to please her now. So a saboteur can be used as a tool.
I use that for clients, actually. That's the exact example I use. Now I get you. Sorry. Yeah. So I always say that there's two sides to every symptom, like a good, a negative, and a positive. And people pleasing, for example, we can use that to our advantage, like you're saying. Especially the example I always use is if somebody really wants to get on top of their exercise, including myself, and it's arrange a walk every morning at 10 a.m. with Mary. You don't want to let Mary down, but you might let yourself down. You may not go yourself, but if you've got that accountability, then people pleasing can be to your advantage, because you want to people please usually, and not let somebody down by cancelling every day. If you've got a walk, say at 10 a.m. every day, you're much more likely to do that walk, because we're using people pleasing, or as you said, the saboteur of pleasing, to our kind of, adding it to our armor of sort of using it to our strengths, for our strengths and for our kind of goals ultimately. So yeah, I use that example with clients a lot, actually. So yeah, I didn't understand. I think again, jet lag, my brain wasn't picking up.
Totally. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people with ADHD say this, but I mean, I'm definitely a visual learner,
Yeah.
and people can explain something to me, and I'm like, I can't see it. I'm a very sort of visual learner, and somebody might be explaining something to me, and then I can feel myself going, I'm lost. And I also find if I'm trying to explain something, a big concept to somebody, like an idea that I've had, like similar to what we're talking about before,
Yeah.
I sometimes feel overwhelmed if I can't draw it for them or draw a diagram, because I'm thinking, have I explained that bit? Can they see what I can see? And so
Mm.
sometimes I need to use a napkin or whatever to be able
Yeah.
to explain it to them. And that's why I sort of use that canvas that I showed you just then, just to be able to see how everything fits
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a few clients that use, it's not Notion, it's Motion, isn't it? I think it's one of,
I think there's probably a Notion and a Motion. Notion is like a
I think,
note taking thing that you can store lots of things in. But Motion, I think, is calendar arranging thing.
that productivity kind of calendar. I think it's Motion because I remember one
Yeah.
client, I think he's like software developer and something like that, I think is his job. And it was very impressive when he shared his screen. I thought, whoa, that's much more techie than I could ever be. But yeah, I think it's Notion that he finds really helpful. But I'd say you're a similar kind of a brain. Maybe it's a male ADHD thing. I don't know, because I think a lot of my male clients have had those kind of real, I suppose it's how the male brain works, isn't it? More logical. Not always when we have ADHD, so we need with our emotional mind too, but sort of seeing it in front of you in a logical way may be helpful, because I actually don't think I've had any female clients that do that. It's actually one actually. But it looked very similar to yours, but I think it was Motion and had every single thing that he does in the day, but all kind of mapped out. I could never do that. I just wouldn't have the patience or the tech knowledge to do all that. But whatever works, isn't it?
Well, that's it. And it's finding what works with you or finding what works with the client and sort of working with that. But I'm just very conscious of time. And so I'm very interested to ask you what's on the horizon for you, 2025, anything exciting?
Yeah, actually, I'm releasing a single in my music career. I'm releasing a single in, I think it's March. We're gonna probably set the date for, and yeah, so I'm really excited for that. A good friend of mine, the composer of World of Warcraft, he's co-produced it with a friend of mine, John Ryan, and just had a meeting with my friend Hans Decline, a Grammy-winning mastering engineer. He's going to master it, so we've got a whole exciting plan for that. So, and the reason I've been able to kind of focus a little bit more on music is that I've pulled back a little bit on taking one-to-one clients with ADHD coaching, and I've been really busy kind of creating some courses so that people can have all the best of what I've learned really works for people, and kind of put it into courses, and they'll have a bit of me live as well. But it just means I can help a lot more people, but also not exchange sort of my time as much. I'll still take on clients, but just I need to be the best coach I can be as well. I need to be able to focus on my sort of my music. That's what's always driven me. So yeah, so I suppose I never thought I would ever do anything other than music, and that's all I've ever done and love. But I found I love this, and I seem to be quite good at it, and people get results. And so I sort of bottled what I've found has been the most helpful things, especially with clients that I've been working with for, say, like a year and a half, and what's really worked, and then seeing that repeat with other clients of what has really been the standout things of what I offer. I bring in deep dialectical behavioral therapy. I have a daughter who's got ADHD. She's nearly 22. So navigating kind of parenthood, and then having kind of different successes in different parts of my career, and et cetera, so that I bring different strings to my bow that seems to help with similar type of people, I suppose, to me, and just other ADHD brains. So that's sort of what I'm really excited about. I'm launching a mini course and a full kind of 1-year course. Mini course getting launched at the end of this week, actually. And then the kind of ADHD mastery, it's called. So a 12-month program is getting launched in February. So I'll be filming the rest of that in January. That's launching in February. And been kind of just hiding myself away, working on all of that. So I'm excited about next year.
So where would the listeners be able to check out, find out updates about when this course is going to drop?
So on my Instagram, which is ADHD Diversity, so ADHD IVEORS. Why is it diversity?
I was looking at that earlier, and I tried to say it myself, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Now, if you put one, it's ADHD, and then it's iversity, but it's ADHD diversity, which, it's, anyway, it is what it is. I think I have had it for a few years now, so I can't change it now. And then my website that'll be sort of launching all my ADHD stuff is adhdmastery.org. And the mini course is called the Clarity Code, ADHD Clarity Code. And then the main kind of 12-month program is ADHD Mastery. So that'll all be on those sites. And then my music website is iamnella.com, and my Instagram is Nella. I just changed it recently. Nella, I am Nella. That's my music Instagram page. I think it's all my links. My promo. Thanks, Laurence.
Well, I think the way you sort of describe it, as an ADHD coach, it's very easily to solve. You can get burnt out, and you can't actually be present for your clients if you're sort of one-dimensional. So the fact that you've got your creative outlet and you can still do the singing and songwriting, it's very good. It gives you energy back. So as a creative singer-songwriter, you've got to have sort of other parts of life to draw from. So it's very nice to have that sort of complementary pairing.
Yeah, no, it is. It keeps it interesting, right? And that keeps my executive functioning working. And it means if I'm not taking on too many one-to-one clients, I'm able to show up for them. And that's sort of really important to me, that I'm not taking on too many people. And then I charge what I'm worth as well. And I think I'm a really strong believer in that. And I think that people really need to work on their money mindset and charge what they are worth. And that means you don't need to burn yourself out and have 50 million clients that you're only half showing up for. Then I couldn't feel authentic. Authenticity is really important. ADHD I couldn't feel authentically that I was giving them the best of me and sort of being on kind of a journey with them that's going to bring them to where they're looking to go to. And I wouldn't feel authentic doing that, and I wouldn't feel good. So that would be the opposite of why I even started this in the first place. So yeah, I think it's anyway, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm too jet lagged.
Thank you so much for having a chat with me. It's been really great to talk to you. And I mean, we're recording this just before Christmas, but it will come out in the new year. But so I will wish you a very happy Christmas and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope that the launching of the course goes very well, and also the new single goes very well as well. So yeah, exciting times.
Yeah, thanks, Laurence. I appreciate it.
Well, there we have it. Thank you so much for listening this far. If you want to hear more episodes, then please subscribe on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you use. It really helps to spread the word. So if you know anyone this episode could help, then please share it with your friends. If you want to follow me on social media, I am on Instagram at ADHD_goals, and you can find me on Facebook too. If you want to get in touch with the show, then you can email me at hello@adhdgoals.co. And finally, if you're struggling to manage your ADHD and you would like me to be your coach, then please head over to my website and get in touch. Until next time, bye for now.